Well, howdy folks. Look what the cat drug in. Today I'm going to show you guys this new crazy little contraption that I picked up because I just couldn't say no to it. I paid probably too much for it, but it got delivered, so that's better than anything I could have done. And yeah, this thing is just super freaking cool. As you can tell, obviously it is a forklift, and this thing is no joke. This forklift setup is, yeah, this is no joke. Like, that's probably 2-inch thick for the forks, beefy bars up here. This whole head frame and everything super beefy on this thing. It's all welded onto the frame. So like, yeah, once this thing's running, of course it doesn't run. Y'all probably already guessed that. It does not run and drive, no. Once this thing's up and running and everything, this thing is going to be one hell of a toy to have around the yard, moving junk and everything, Of course, you got to have your gin pull truck and your forklift. And, well, we'll get to the very cool thing just right away because you guys probably already know, probably from the video title, the forklift is built onto the back of a World War II Chevrolet G506. So this originally was a 1.5-ton four-wheel drive truck that was used in World War II. When this thing was brand new, it would have looked something like this. So, as you can see, it's quite a bit different. It would have had like a pickup cab on it, and it would have had probably a dump bed on it. This one had a really short wheelbase, so it might not have been one of the dump beds. I'm not 100% sure. It did have a winch on the front of it. You can see it's got the frame extensions that come out, and then you can still see riveted on there, these plates. So this thing would have had a winch on it. I'm not 100% sure what that means it originally was, but yeah, it was a 1.5-ton four-wheel drive truck. And obviously, it is way different now. These trucks were insanely overbuilt. Like I say, it's a 1.5-ton truck. That's a 1-ton truck. In terms of like size and dimensions of components, like the axles and stuff, like it's crazy how much things have changed, These things are awesome, though. So, of course, they turned it backwards. So there's a lot of crazy little modifications and everything. Here's your hydraulic pump for the forklift. And you can see she's got some cobbled together U-joints and everything, and it's just welded right onto the balancer of the old engine, this is all super crazy cool stuff. And of course the hydraulic pump's just mounted to this plate here. I can't tell if that's the original height of the grill or what. What I can tell is that this is the early G506 grill. I don't know when they switched, but they switched at some point and the grills changed. So these ones that kind of snake up and down are the early G506 grills, which means this truck is actually probably the oldest truck that I own. I'm pretty sure, if you would consider it still a truck. Just get in here. So I had this thing delivered last night, and I didn't really get a good chance to really look it over. It steers and it rolls, which is good, because we dropped it down in the driveway down there, and I just towed it up with the service truck. And she's heavy, but she rolls. All 4 tires in the back are flat, which did not help because the bottom of the crane mast is stuck in the dirt because it's tilted down and we couldn't tilt it back. Those hydraulic cylinders are kind of stuck, but deal with that later. Somewhere under all this yellow should be hood numbers. There you can kind of see one coming through in white, which is, I absolutely love it when the hood numbers and the stars start coming through. You can see the olive drab coming through on the fenders, of course. This thing still has one of the blackout marker lights on it, and the other one's still here. So I didn't think the hood was with it. When he showed up with it, it had the hood. So that's awesome. And I mean, obviously it's the actual hood for this thing. Doesn't really fit very much anymore. You kind of have to finagle it on there, but I threw it on to protect what's left of this old engine. So this is a GMC engine. Up on top it says GMC, which means this is not the original engine to the G506 here. This is, I think it would be a GMC 270 out of like a 50s GMC truck. I'm not 100% sure. I can guarantee you it's not original. It is seized, and that's kind of why the previous owner never threw the hood on it, I don't think. I don't think he ever had the hood on it because the engine was seized, and he was just kind of like, you know, whatever. I don't entirely understand that, but, you know, I guess you got to do what you got to do, and sometimes, you know, it's just not worth saving some things, so that's a mentality I guess I can understand. It does have an electric, fully electric starter on it, like it doesn't have the, it's not set up for the foot pedal or anything anymore, which makes sense since the foot pedal would be behind you unless they changed it. So, yeah, maybe I'll dive into the old engine here and see if we can't save it or anything. I saw one of the spark plugs is out, and the rest of them I'm pretty sure are loose in there. So somebody was goofing around with this thing. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll take the valve cover off and see how bad that is, or drop the oil out of it or something, you know. I'm sure it is bad, but who knows? It could be savable, and that would be amazing. Obviously, I need a radiator is kind of the big thing that this thing still needs. That's kind of the only, like, component that it's actually missing. Now we'll move back to some of the cool stuff. Here's the battery box. It's full of old rocks, which I wasn't expecting it to come with free rocks, because I don't buy trucks and expect them to come with rocks, but I like rocks, so not going to turn that down. It's an old water pump here, I think. It's an old Sears and Roebuck. Huh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like a belt drive water pump. That's pretty cool. This thing's wild that the, you know, there's your hydraulic reservoir and your hydraulic valves, and then the pump's all the way up there, so it pumps all the fluid up here, and it's all put together with this pipe, and then, like, in a couple places they welded the pipe, which is wild to me. Yeah, there it's welded. This is just hose clamped, so this is your low pressure side. It goes into the pump. So this just needs to supply fluid. It's non-pressurized into the pump, and then this is the high pressure side, which I don't understand, or I don't know a lot about the standards of hydraulics and whatnot, so I'm sure the pipe is probably not the greatest option, but, you know, if it didn't blow up when they were using it, it's probably not going to blow up when I'm using it. We'll get a kind of a look on this side. You can see I got it over into the trees, so obviously I can still drive through the middle here. This thing needs to find another parking spot eventually, but for right now, this is where she sits. These, see, I don't know whether to call this the front or the rear. I want to call it the front because it was the front of the truck, but it's the rear now. But these single tires are still holding air, which is great, and like this one is in amazing shape. Just some crazy engineering in here. You can see they cut off, that's the shock absorber there. They cut that off, changed some stuff around, so. And then I'll talk about the steering in a second. The steering is, well, I'll talk about it now. So there's your steering drag link there, and it goes all the way back here. So they pulled the steering column out of the G506 and placed it here vertical, right in front of the seat. Here's the seat. The seat does not swivel. I was curious about that. This seat, I think, is out of something else, World War II, like a crane or something, because it's got these fold-up back pieces. Both of these fold up and down. So it would add a cushion here and a cushion there. So and you can see olive drab coming through on the seat even. So I think this seat is something from World War II, which is amazing. I noticed last night this thing did have some kind of cab on it. You can see angle iron there. That big angle iron there, and there. So I think they had a cab over it, and I don't know why you'd cut the cab off. Like, that would have been so neat to see it with its cab on, and, like, obviously handy. The old oil-soaked boards here are going to last forever, but what I was talking about was the steering here. So G506 steering column, all original, that goes straight down, and then here's the steering box. So they just welded this plate onto the frame, and then the steering box is mounted to it. You can see that nice hole there. That's not supposed to be there, but when we wheeled this thing up here, she said it actually steered really nice. So, I mean, if it works, it works. And of course, something that I wasn't expecting, it makes absolute sense, but it's backwards. So, yeah, if you're up here facing that way, it's backwards, so everything's wonky. But of course, if you're facing that way, everything's forwards, because this is the front now. So this thing's wild. It's actually like a pretty comfortable, like, seating position. It still has the running boards. which I didn't mention because these things never have the running boards anymore. Of course, the fenders are all dinged and danged up and patched together and everything, but it's actually a pretty nice set of G506 fenders. Yeah, the seating position up here is actually pretty comfortable for running the forklift. You got your transmission shifter here. Nothing else is reversed, so I'm almost certain that there's 1 forward gear now and 4 reverse gears, which is all right, you know. Just means I can go really fast backwards. 2 hydraulic valves, 1 for the tilt. They're 2-way valves in and out, so 1 for the tilt and 1 raises and lowers the forks, of course. If I get around here, one of the neatest things about this is you can see it still has the factory, the G506 gauge panel out of the G506, which I was not expecting at all. So yeah, when they took the cab off of this truck, they kept the gauge panel and just put it in there. The speedometer's gone, which sucks. I'll never know how fast I'm going backwards, but they did build this little filler panel, so that's the choke there. I figured out ignition and start. And then everything else is pretty explanatory. Huge PTO drive on here still, even though I saw that and was thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense, and then I was like, that makes absolutely no sense, because the whole forklift setup's run off that hydraulic pump on the front. I almost wonder if it would be able to be converted, that hydraulic pump, to run off that PTO, but I don't really know. I don't know. I guess this thing always kind of needs hydraulic pressure, so it makes sense. There is no more star on this hood, but man, this thing's so neat. This step's a little messed up, but that's all right. Not like you use that side anyways. Got some extra hydraulic lines. Of course, all these hydraulic lines are going to need replacing. A lot of this is super simple, and I just find that so cool that it could honestly be this simple. Now we're kind of back to some of the wild engineering and stuff. Really heavy duty fenders. Just like I said, this thing is all super heavy duty. Forks are chained up, obviously, they kind of need to be. And then yeah, you can see the bottom of the mast is just stuck right in the dirt. So you can follow the trail of the mast all the way up here where it drug in the dirt, which isn't great, but it's only down I don't know, maybe a half an inch, depending on angle of the front of the truck. So it didn't scar up too much. It just got dragged through the dirt. Here's probably the wildest thing. Big, heavy, greasy old welds right on the back of the frame of this thing. What gets me is how heavy this forklift is, and then this truck was only a 1.5 ton truck, which 1.5 tons on this forklift setup I don't think is that much. So this is almost I don't know, an 8 or a 10 ton, just eyeball engineering. Originally, I think it's not anymore. They added these two guys on either side of this fork because they definitely bent this fork. So, and I don't know what the heat treat and temper and stuff was on forks and forklifts back in the day, because if it wasn't as heavy as it is now, or if it wasn't as refined, then the forks wouldn't be able to handle as much weight, so they would have made them thicker to take the brunt. But anyways, this thing's just wild. I have no idea when it was built. I have no idea where it was used, which is, stuff I like to know a lot of the time. I like knowing kind of the history on a lot of things, but yeah, this thing's wild. Yeah, it's got a custom-made, I totally forgot I was talking about the steering, but custom-made drag link that goes from there all the way up to there. That actually works pretty well. Front drive shaft still in it, so she's a 4-wheel drive forklift. The frame actually looks magnificent on this thing. It looks great. Yep, right there is where the steering box went, and you can see it's not cracked at all because the steering box wasn't there for very long. It got moved. Still has the carburetor on it, which is great. So the only super kind of... The only sort of hardish to find thing is going to be the radiator, which isn't going to be that hard. They actually still make them. So it just needs a radiator and obviously an engine. But yeah, generator's still on down there, which is great. this thing is wild. Super cool piece of engineering and ingenuity that like happened. I totally shouldn't have bought it, but it was just too cool to pass up. And obviously it's so unique, you know, and who doesn't want to say they have a 4-wheel drive forklift? So anyways, hopefully maybe later this summer I'll have a look at that engine and sort of try and figure out where the issue is and how bad it is, about why it is stuck. It doesn't spin over at all. And yeah, who knows? If this video blows up and gets like 100,000 views, I'll try and make this thing run and drive this summer and maybe put it to work. I don't know. But until then, thank you guys for watching and enjoying this beautiful piece of engineering and this wild World War II modified G506, you know? These old modified trucks are one of the coolest things out there, is what and how the people modified them and what they needed them for. Obviously, after the war, they were plentiful and sort of cheap. And you can't turn down a 4-wheel drive truck, especially at a time when 4-wheel drive was not common at all. So yeah, this thing was a workhorse for somebody. But anyways, until next time, folks, thank you guys for watching and enjoying this. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one.